Welcome back once again. You know, we saw a lot of our next guest over the last year, but all of a sudden, we hardly see him anymore. Rick Antonson joining us, CEO and President of Tourism Vancouver, and we are talking about the first anniversary, if you can believe it, of the 2010 Olympics. How are you, Rick? Nice to see you, man.
Nice to be back.
Can you believe it's been a year?
You know, sometimes it seems like it was last week, and other times it seems like 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, this was a very intense experience for you, too. I mean, you had a very different view of the Olympic Games than I think most people got an opportunity to have.
Well, one of the things that always comes to mind is that, you know, in February, us and like tens of thousands of British Columbians got to deliver on a vision that was like 50 years old. That's how long people have been saying, let's have the Olympics in Whistler. And finally, they were here, and now it's a memory.
Well, I'm actually, we're interviewing John Furlong tomorrow, and he talks about the seeds of this idea for the Olympics, and your name came up in his book about those initial conversations about bringing the Olympics to Vancouver.
Well, yeah, I was privileged to be a part of it. It was people like John Mills and Gary Young, Bruce McMillan, but they were building on stuff of the previous two bids from people like Dr. Bob Heinhardt, who said, you know, we should really do this. And then finally, mid-1990s, it happened, and then 14 years later, poof.
Poof. And it came and went. I mean, the time just went so fast. So anyway, we're coming up to the first year anniversary, and this is a big one. There's lots planned around the city and lots of things. And I think one of the most stirring is probably going to be the relighting of the Olympic cauldron on Saturday.
4 o'clock on Saturday. And I walked by it the other day. They were doing, obviously, a bit of a test and just making sure everything was primed. And all of a sudden, there it was. And I thought, well, what's going on? And it was just sort of making sure it's going to work really well when they do it.
They should have done that before Wayne Gretzky got to it as well.
But it's I think it's going to be exciting. It galvanized our province, and it's going to do it again. So Saturday afternoon, but there's a fair number of things happening on Saturday. You mentioned John Furlong.
Yeah.
His book's out. So the Vancouver AM Tourism Group is doing a breakfast that people can go to. So at 9 o'clock for a 9:30 beginning, and John's going to talk about it. The book's marvelous, and it captures the spirit. And that, to have it ready, published by Douglas and McIntyre, and Gary Mason worked on it with him. It's an amazing
Once
story.
again, no pressure from Mr. Furlong to make sure it's out at the 1 year anniversary. Right?
Yeah.
That is a man who works well under pressure.
Well, and he'd be the first to talk about all the volunteers, the blue jackets, the green jackets, and everybody from, you know, just that made it happen.
Well, and the other thing that I find really interesting about this first year anniversary is it really puts into perspective the legacy of the games, and both on a human level, but also just in pure infrastructure as well. I mean, there's celebrations at the Robson Square ice rink, which was brought back to to life. Yeah, it really was.
Gone. It was water. The water had evaporated. There was no ice rink. Now back, and it's part of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And there's lots of construction going on up above. So when people go to Robson Square this weekend, got to work their way
you got to work
down.
Underneath that.
But they're also going to have street hockey and sort of the Granville-Robson area is going to be animated and activated.
Well,
that's going to be
Rick,
lots of fun.
A guy with your perspective as well. I mean, you know, your job is to watch the city and watch it come alive and attract people. And for years and years, I mean, first of all, Cole Harbour wasn't
Look
much,
at the change.
but Granville Street as well. And that was a place that became, planned or not, the absolute epicenter of the Olympic movement as well.
Yeah, I ran into Art Phillips, who was mayor when the Granville Mall was put in place. And this is just a few weeks ago. And I said, you know, think of it during the games. He said, yeah, we were early. You know, they were early 20 years ago. But it became so much of the place. It was the epicenter of town. There, Robson Street, and to see that coming back, they're going to do some stuff on Granville, so the Granville-Robson area on the 26th weekend as well on the Saturday.
Oh, nice.
And the Royal Mint is going to have a little boutique display in the 700 block on Granville, so people can go see the medals from the Paralympic Games and the Olympic Games. Because, you know, if you think about it, that was something. Who thought that people would be gravitating to the Mint, the Canadian Mint display?
Yeah.
But during the Olympics, remember, there were 7-hour lineups to get in
well,
there.
they were incredible. I mean, those medals, they were each one individual works of art. I mean, they weren't just medals. They were absolutely stunning.
You don't see those on eBay.
Now, outside of Vancouver, of course, the mountains are all having big celebrations.
Yeah, Grouse Mountain's going to be back to 24/7 because that's what they were doing during the games, of course, because of the broadcasting you have from there. Cyprus is doing some big events on the weekend, and that's going to be terrific. Whistler, of course, it's Whistler anniversary, it's Vancouver's anniversary, but Richmond as well. Surrey, where they had their events, they're back to doing something.
What's Richmond doing? They're doing something out of the Oval?
At the Oval. the Oval. So on the weekend, people get out there Saturday, Sunday, be a part of it, and it's reliving it. You know, it's nice to see the anniversary happen on a Saturday.
Yeah.
That we're kind of able to see all of that. It makes everybody can be a part of it. And part of the subtle pitch that you don't hear anybody really talking a lot about is it's time to bring out the red and the white again. It's time to dress up. It's time to grab those gloves. We're going to have cold weather.
Well, and remember what that, you know, I think, and I'm going to talk about this a lot with John Furlong tomorrow, but the way that this country came together, that moment of pride in who we are, not in a nationalistic fervor, but in a deep, genuine pride of what a beautiful multicultural society Canada and Vancouver were becoming.
Did you know there were that many Canadian flags?
No idea.
I mean, people must have had them
tucked
in their sock drawers or something.
I didn't know
Where'd
you
they come
could
from?
play the tabla during O Canada. That's what I learned on Granville Street. It was just a beautiful moment all the way along. And Whistler's got a Winter Arts Festival as well. And there's some footage of Granville Street, and just what a blast that was.
It just brings it all back, doesn't it? I mean, you think of all the invigoration, all of the excitement. And this was, it wasn't about 10,000 or 100,000 people. These were hundreds of thousands of fellow Canadians hosting the world. And Furlong had said from the very start, these games are going to be relevant to every home in Canada. You know, when you think about it, you go back a year, we were still, 2 days away from the end of the torch relay that had gone all over the country and come within, I think, 100 kilometers of 90-some-odd% of Canadians.
It's an amazing stat. I love that. We want to talk about something else really quickly as well, because after your Olympic experience, of course, very intensive, you took a little Rick Antonson time, and you went on a great adventure. Tell us about this. You went to
I ran away. In fact, when I was last with you in July, you said, "Where are you going to run away?" And I did say Mount Ararat, so I
you had to deliver.
I had to do it. I got to Eastern Turkey, was able to make arrangements to join an expedition, 5 of us and a guide, to the summit. So when you look at Mount Baker, you see it at about 10,700 feet. This is 17,000 feet, but it's not a technical climb. It's just an aggressive.
17,000 feet.
And the summit happens. We were woken up by our guide, and the 5 of us and the guide left with headlamps at 1:30 in the morning. So it's a little like doing the grouse grind in the dark, but exhilarating. And I got down off all that. I had a chance to travel a bit in Iraq, which was a wonderful experience.
Oh, wow.
Then back into Turkey and into Iran. So no BlackBerry. I was off the grid. I was gone for a month, and saw my wife at the start, my wife at the end, and it was an exhilarating.
Well,
experience.
and after spending so much time focusing on Vancouver, a city that obviously is so close to your heart, being able to go and see somewhere else in the world in such an intense and intimate way has got to be a real pleasure as well.
Very fortunate guy.
Thank you so much for joining us,
Thanks for having me back.
Lots of stuff to do this weekend. Go check it out. Pick an event. Go down there and remember what fun that was, and celebrate everything that we have to look forward to in the future as well. You can go to tourismvancouver.com for information on all the events. We're going to take a break and come back with a little bit more right after this.